today, as I speak to you, I think we've done about 4 million people in this country, which is obviously encouraging. But just being here at Oxford Biomedica and talking to the people who are putting the vaccine together here, you can see how immensely complex it is. And because it's absolutely got to be safe, and it is safe, it does take time to prepare. So we're getting it out as fast as we can. 4 million done so far. We're now, I think, have done more than half of the over 80s, almost half of the people in care homes, the elderly residents of care homes. Those groups remain a top priority. Don't forget, they're an absolute priority for us. But it's right, as more vaccine comes on stream, to get it into the arms of the other groups in the JCVI list, the Joint Committee on Vaccination and Immunisation list as well. And that's what we're doing.
Despite those complications that you talk about, the fact it's difficult, are you guaranteeing that by September, everybody across the UK, adults, will have been offered a vaccine? And will that allow us to basically get back to normal?
I understand completely that people want to get back to normal as fast as we possibly can. It does depend, Nick, on things going well. It depends on the vaccination programme going well. It depends on there being no new variants that throw our plans out and that we have to militate against. And of course, it depends on everybody, all of us, remembering that we're not out of the woods yet. You can see the pressure that the NHS is under. You can see I'm afraid still the great number of cases that we're seeing every day. We've got to maintain discipline, stop the spread of the virus by all the basic ways that we know, not just washing our hands and all the rest of it, but staying at home, protecting the NHS, stopping those chains of transmission now in that crucial period as we roll the vaccine out.
In terms of how the vaccine is being rolled out, there are some questions over some areas, some parts of the UK not being as quick as others. Are you concerned that there's a bit of a postcode lottery at the moment?
Well, I think actually the whole of the UK is going very well, and overall the pace of the rollout is very encouraging. What we're doing is making sure that the armed services, the army, is on standby everywhere. It's embedded in the whole vaccine programme across all of the United Kingdom. The armed services are helping, together with pharmacists, a great legion of volunteers, and we're going as fast as we can. But I stress, we will do everything we can. Just get back to your earlier point. We'll do everything we can, obviously, to open up. But when we come to February the 15th, and the moment when we have to take stock of what we achieved, that's the time to look at where the virus is, the extent of the infection, and the success that we've had. And it's only really then that we can talk about the way ahead and what steps we can take to relax. And it will be, I'm afraid I've got to warn people, it will be gradual. You can't just open up in a great open sesame, a great bang, because I'm afraid the situation is still pretty precarious, as people can tell.
You did promise that things would be relatively normal by the spring. Is that still the ambition of the government? Do you still think that's possible? Yes,
I do, Nick. I do think that things will be very different by the spring. And you'll have heard that also from Chris Whitty and Patrick Vallance, the Chief Medical Officer and Chief Scientific Advisor. That doesn't mean that we're not going to be living with the consequences of the arrival of the coronavirus pandemic for a while to come. The economic consequences and, of course, the threat to our health as well. And we'll have to remain vigilant about this, I think, for a long time.
You mentioned the economic consequences being around for some time. One of the big questions that you need to answer is whether you're going to keep the £20 extra a week you're giving to people on universal credit. Can you tell us whether the government's going to continue that beyond the end of March?
Well, what we've said is that we'll put our arms around the whole of the country throughout the pandemic. The countries, we've already done, I think, £280 billion worth of support, and we'll keep all measures obviously under constant review. We've got to get our country through the health crisis. I think that actually the UK is capable of staging a very, very powerful economic recovery, but we've got to look after people throughout the pandemic.
That £20 a week can be the difference for some people between feeding the family and not feeding the family. People want to know if they're going to have that in a couple of months' time. You know, just give them an answer on universal credit.
Well, we're very proud of universal credit and the introduction of universal credit, and you know, I think it's the policy of the opposition to abolish universal credit altogether, which I don't think is a sensible way forward.
You're the Prime Minister. Will there be £20 extra come April?
Well, as I say, we want to support people throughout the pandemic, and what we don't want to do is abolish universal credit altogether.
This does mean a lot to people's individual pockets, though. They desperately want to know if you're going to continue that. Can you give us some clarity?
Well, I think you've heard me say that we want to support people throughout the pandemic. We want to make sure that people don't suffer as a result of the economic consequences of the pandemic. When you look at what the government has done to provide £280 billion worth of support, the furlough scheme, the bounce back loans, colossal investment, probably more than most other comparable countries. I don't think you could fault the government for supporting people. We will continue to do that.
Just very quickly, there are dozens of hauliers holding up Whitehall at the moment because they want to know what you meant when you said that you were going to support seafood exporters through a tough period because of the new Brexit red tape. What are you going to do?
Well, insofar as there are problems at the moment caused by teething problems, people not filling in the right forms or misunderstandings, and when it's not people's fault, of course we're going to compensate and to help out, and funds have been put in place to do that. But be in no doubt, Nick, that there are great opportunities for fishermen across the whole of the UK to take advantage of the spectacular marine wealth of the United Kingdom. In just 5 years' time, 5.5 years' time, we will have access to all the fish in all of our coastal waters. And before then, from now, as I talk to you today, we have access to 25% more than we did a month ago. And that means that there is scope for fishing communities, fishers across the UK to take advantage of the increase in quota. And what we're going to do is give people a helping hand. And that's why we've set up the £100 million fund to help people with their boats, to help the fish processing industry in this country, and to help rejuvenate a historic and proud industry in the UK. And the government will support it. We think the opportunity is massive.
What's your message for those exporters who are losing money at the moment because their food isn't getting to the continent in time?
I sympathise very, very much, and I understand their frustrations, and I understand their concerns. Obviously, things have been exacerbated by the COVID pandemic. Unfortunately, the demand in restaurants on the continent for UK fish has not been what it was before the pandemic, just because the restaurants have been closed for so long, and that is one of the problems we're all trying to deal with. Unfortunately, this is driven in large part by the pandemic, and we've put in place all sorts of measures, as I've just been saying, to help businesses throughout the pandemic. What I'm also saying, Nick, is that where businesses, through no fault of their own, have experienced bureaucratic delays, difficulties getting their goods through, whether there is a genuine, a willing buyer on the other side of the channel, and they've had a problem, then there's a £23 million compensation fund that we've set up, and we'll make sure that they get helped.